All right. We are dropping into two places at once. Two profoundly intense, equally chaotic arenas at the exact same moment.
Exactly. And they couldn't seem more different on the surface.
On one side, you've got the hyper-structured, almost pathologically competitive world of the Enfield Tennis Academy ETA.
A place that's all about physical and intellectual mastery.
And it is completely, utterly paralyzed by this massive, blinding snowstorm.
And then on the other side, we're in the raw, visceral hell of a trauma ward in Boston.
Yeah.
Where a man, Don Gately, is fighting the battle of his life, not against an opponent, but just to stay straight.
It's a war, isn't it? It's waged entirely against physical pain, chemical temptation, and just the crushing weight of his own past.
It is, and that's the thing. That simultaneous awakening, that's the heart of this deep dive.
We're looking at an immediate chronicle of events, like what happens in the span of just a few hours.
But we're weaving that with the deeply remembered psychological undercurrents that feed into those few hours.
Our mission here is to meticulously examine the observable actions.
And the hidden motivations.
Right. To really understand what drives these two very different men when their lives present them with what the text calls the literally unendurable.
And that scene setting is so crucial because each character is trapped in a really unique type of cage.
How so?
Well, Hal Cadenza is navigating this paralyzing intellectual and emotional void within the Academy's walls. It's a mental prison.
On Gately.
Gately is physically immobilized by trauma. He's just desperately trying to survive this intense pain without succumbing to the one thing that would offer relief.
The chemical relief.
The chemical relief that would mean immediate fatal relapse.
So what we're really unpacking here are two different types of, well, high-stakes performance anxiety.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, you have the anxiety of having to perform excellence constantly, day in and day out.
And then you have the anxiety of having to perform this painful moment-by-moment abstinence, just saying no over and over again.
Let's start with Hal. Let's start at ETA.
We begin with Hal Cadenza waking up. It's well before 5 a.m., and he's disturbed.
And it's not a normal kind of grogginess.
No, not at all. He describes this feeling not as a stomachache, but as a nausea of the head.
Wow.
Which immediately signals that his distress is primarily, cognitive and emotional. It's not just physical.
He's feeling this profound intellectual malaise that just colors his entire perception.
Exactly. And he knows he's carrying what he calls a week's worth of unspent, unacknowledged emotional residue.
And the physical manifestation of this is, it's just bizarre.
It really is.
This strange sensation of tears stopping just millimeters behind his eyes and staying there.
It's like he's holding back an ocean of grief or anxiety, but it's through sheer, unexamined willpower.
And you see the cost of this suppression right away in his room. His own pillow is moist from this hidden distress.
And then you get this incredible contrast with his roommate, Mario,
Right.
who is a vision of silent, soundless sleep. Mario's hands are folded on his chest, as if awaiting a lily.
It's so peaceful.
It's total, immediate serenity. It's acceptance of the moment.
While Hal is just suppressed chaos, he's already enacting this mandated performance of wellness.
And that performance begins right away, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. He gets up before dawn to do his therapy,
The one ordered by DeLint and Barry Loach for his ankle.
which involves standing on his left foot for 15 minutes in the dark.
And he notes that this makes him feel sort of dickish.
That little detail is so telling, isn't it?
It's extremely telling. Hal is this extraordinary talent, a prodigy of language and intellect.
But he constantly feels awkward. He feels self-conscious about every single action he takes.
And the therapy itself, standing on one foot, it's designed to work muscles that are therapeutically unreachable any other way.
It's a perfect metaphor for his internal life.
Absolutely. He's constantly working these deep, unreachable muscles of his psyche, trying to maintain some kind of emotional balance.
But he feels entirely uncomfortable and conspicuous while doing it.
So you have this intense internal pressure building up.
And then the external world just crashes in.
The snow.
The snow. He looks out the window, and what he sees is this monumental, swirling snowfall, estimated at a good 50 centimeters already on the ground.
And the sensory details are just fascinating.
They really are. The flakes are hitting the window with a sandy sound.
And giving the entire vista a purple cast. It's not white snow, it's purple.
Oh, yeah, it looks like a briskly shaken paperweight.
The sheer scale of the storm immediately brings an omen. And this is where Hal's psychological shift becomes just undeniable.
A cold hope flares in him.
Yes. The thought that this massive storm could mean the cancellation of the day's training, or maybe even the big exhibition meet.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Because the moment that hope flares up,
The immediate backlash of this hope was an even worse feeling.
he realizes with a shock that he actively hoped not to play.
And for someone like Hal, that's a profound internal betrayal. It indicates an active loss of passion for the one thing that has defined his entire identity since he was old enough to hold a racket.
It's a catastrophe for him.
Total catastrophe. And what does he do?
His intellect immediately tries to distance itself from this terrifying emotional truth.
Right. Instead of sitting with the horror of his lost motivation, he stares at the pulsing lead of the telephone console and the blinking smoke detector light.
He starts analyzing their interference pattern.
He's using math and physics as a shield.
100%. He determines how the temporal relation between the two unsyncopated flashes would translate spatially into the algebraic formula for an ellipse.
And he notes he's not using calculus, which he says is too hardwired now.
He's retreating to pure abstract algebraic structures. It's a safe, sterile, intellectual place to avoid confronting the simple, messy truth of his own burnout.
And the sense of isolation is just compounded by the absence of his intellectual guide.
Semulus.
The one who had been generously pouring these rigorous pre-boards math tutorials into Hal's head, he stopped.
Semulus has been very scarce, right? He's missing meals, taking the academy truck for long periods.
Ever since what the source material just refers to as the Wayne debacle.
So Hal is adrift. He's deprived of his main intellectual coping mechanism, and he's getting more and more confused.
Let's talk about the event the snow is threatening to cancel, because it's a whole thing.
It's the annual semi-public exhibition meet, an innovation of Charles Tavis for the benefit of ETA's patrons and alumni.
But this whole affair is just wrapped up in layers and layers of cynicism.
The premise is this patriotic, gentle fiction.
I love that phrase.
That the foreign squad, the Quebec Junior Davis and Whiteman Cup teams, is merely passing through on some vague North American tour.
But the reality is that CT, Charles Tavis, often flies them in special just to serve as cannon fodder.
And the audience knows this. They're in on it.
Which is why there's this underlying ugly xeno-racist mood among the spectator.
It's fueled by recollections of past matches, like the '72 turkey shoot against Mozambique.
They are there to watch overwhelming, predictable dominance. The source compares it, chillingly, to Mussolini's tanks rolling over Ethiopian spear chuckers.
It's just an exercise in self-aggrandizement.
And the stake for a lot of the players is equally juvenile.
Right. Two of the students, Struck and Freer, they're keenly anticipating the Quebec girls' arrival for the express purpose of
broadening intercultural relations of all kinds.
In short, they want sex.
Exactly. So the snowstorm, ironically, is threatening both the Academy's institutional ego and the students' immediate base desires.
Okay, so feeling this existential dread and the pressure of the unacknowledged snow day, Hal leaves his room.
And he rounds a corner and is confronted with a tableau so bizarre it feels immediately unreal. Orthostes, known as the Darkness, is sitting motionless in front of a hall window.
Dressed in his classic darkness wear black sweatshirt and sweatpants.
With his forehead pressed against the cold glass, chanting quietly to himself.
It's an unnerving scene.
Yeah.
And the tension is immediate.
Because Hal is still grappling with that horrible pre-crying feeling we talked about.
And Stice, the immobile figure, he senses this immediately.
The first thing Stice asks, point blank, is if Hal is crying.
Which suggests this deep, unacknowledged emotional resonance between the two of them. Stice, despite his paralysis, is somehow acutely attuned to Hal's suppressed emotional turmoil.
And Hal denies it, of course. He rattles his toothbrush to communicate a shrug, tries to just dismiss the tension.
And then Stice reveals the agonizing mechanical horror of his situation.
He hasn't been sitting there for 5 minutes. He has been sitting there immobile since about 1 a.m.
Because his sweaty forehead froze solid to the pain.
He literally Kurt-wanged my own self.
Wait, I have to pause here. He was too embarrassed to call out.
Yep.
He chose 4 hours of excruciating immobility over the shame of being discovered.
Absolutely. The powerlessness of Stice is immense. He's sitting there in the dark, immobilized, praying specifically that it wouldn't be Pemulus.
Or the overly ambitious, obnoxious Jim Troeltsch who found him.
This is his psychological defense mechanism. He's treating a grotesque, life-threatening crisis as merely embarrassing.
So he's hiding from social judgment even while he's trapped by literal ice.
And when Hal tries to get him to engage, he immediately diverts the conversation.
Yeah, he starts talking about a statistics joke and vague mentions of telekinesis and paranormal shit.
He's using intellectual and fictional constructs to avoid the physical, immediate reality of his stuck forehead.
So Hal, recognizing the damage is probably already done, insists on a solution. He needs to pull Stice off.
And he tells Stice to prepare mentally for the pain, but strategically he pulls on the count of 2.
Specifically to prevent Stice from bracing, which would make the separation worse. It's actually pretty smart.
It is, but the grotesque consequence is horrifyingly physical and intensely detailed.
There's this horrible sound.
And Stice's skin distends, stretching into a shelf of stretched forehead flesh half a meter long.
The text describes it like elastic from hell.
But the physical horror provides a moment of shocking, painful revelation for Hal.
As the jowly flesh is pulled tight, Hal sees Stice's real face underneath the usual slackness.
A narrow, fine-featured, and slightly rodential face, aflame with some sort of revelation.
This is the real cost of their emotional hiding. The skin of performance has to be painfully stripped back to reveal the sharp, true self underneath.
And Stice's shriek, "Jesus, God, put it back!" is his immediate agonizing surrender to the physical reality he was trying so hard to ignore.
And of course, the chaos immediately draws the attention of the very person Stice dreaded.
Jim Troeltsch.
The obnoxious Jim Troeltsch appears, immediately making a parody of the scene into his fist. Reports of screaming have reached us here in the Eyewitness News Center.
It's just a moment of immense cruelty compounding the suffering.
What's fascinating to me is Hal's internal response to this escalating trauma.
Right. He goes to get the custodial crew, Kenkel, the PhD in low-temperature physics, and Brandt, his submaronic assistant.
They arrive with this total scientific detachment.
Then Kenkel, the hyperanalytical observer, he notes that Hal's face is a hilarity face.
He's openly cachinated with mirth, even though Hal consciously composes his face to appear somber.
So his mind is so saturated by the horror, the frozen face, the stretching skin, the cruel Troeltsch, that the only viable, involuntary, and totally inappropriate reaction is uncontrollable laughter.
His emotional regulator is completely short-circuited.
It's the brain's failure mode. When you're faced with the unendurable, overwhelming reality, the intellect just defaults to the most jarring, absurd response.
And the academy environment, in its structured intensity, has made him incapable of a normal, sympathetic reaction.
And the chaos just keeps mounting, doesn't it?
Yeah, we get this bizarre confirmation that Troeltsch spent the night in Axford's single room, and nobody, not Hal, not the custodians, acknowledges the impropriety or the unspoken implication of the room switch.
It's just another piece of acknowledged escalating chaos that no one is allowed to process.
Hal realizes he needs to escape this environment before he permanently breaks.
So he retreats. He goes to the empty viewing room, VR5, trying to find some solitude.
But the physical routine of the academy, the sheer repetition of his life, it triggers an acute, telescopically self-conscious panic.
And this is not a disorienting panic attack. In fact, it's intensely sensory and lucid.
The world seems suddenly almost edible, everything having too many aspects.
His mind is just moving too fast, processing too much sensory input simultaneously. It's overwhelming.
And the crushing cognitive aspect of this panic is the repetition.
He's re-experiencing the years of routine, the total number of steps, breaths, movements.
And realizing this entire cycle has to be repeated, endlessly, day after day, year after year, until he dies. The thought of this perpetual meaningless cycle is just exhausting.
And here is the core of his existential dread. It's a concept that high achievers often bury under ambition.
And this abstract realization is immediately grounded in horrifying, visceral, bodily reality.
He experiences vividly the image of a broad, cool room piled floor to ceiling with the megagrams of lightly breaded chicken fillets he will consume over 60 years of life.
But worse than the consumption is the consequence. He sees a dimmer room filled with the rising mass of the excrement I'd produce. The room's double-locked steel door gradually bowing outward with the mounting pressure.
Hal's crisis, then, it boils down to this horrifying calculation.
His entire lifetime of intellectual ambition, technical mastery, and athletic excellence will ultimately be neutralized by the sheer, gross, inescapable biology of eating and excreting.
The physical volume of his own existence is what terrifies him. It makes all the vertical ambition, the jumping, the running, the striving, it makes it all feel entirely pointless.
That terrifying vision of the rising excrement leads to a profound philosophical crisis about purpose.
He reflects on true perspicacity and expertise, noting that the fact people can actually care deeply about anything, topology, grammar, games, or needles, is a kind of black miracle.
He realizes that we are all dying to give our lives away to something.
But is that devotion truly meaningful? That's the question he's grappling with.
He sees this devotion not as a pure upward pursuit, but as a flight in the form of a plunging into.
You plunge into the game, into the math, into the ambition, to flee the gross, mundane, and terrifying reality of the body.
You flee the rooms blandly filled with excrement and meat.
So we're saying the pursuit of excellence, especially the relentless vertical striving you see in these high-performance environments, isn't an ascent, but a desperate sprint away from existential dread.
That's a massive insight into why people push themselves to the point of breaking.
Precisely. And the Academy's role is revealed as this kind of sinister kindness.
They start the students young, before the age when the questions why and to what grow real beaks and claws.
They initiate them into this life of absolute dedication before they can ever question the terrifying void of their own physical, finite existence.
His final move is total surrender. The panic overwhelms him, and he just lies horizontal on the carpet.
He calls it the horizontality revelation.
He feels awakened to a basic dimension he'd entirely neglected in years of vertical living, running, training, jumping.
And lying flat, he feels denser, more solidly composed, and impossible to knock down.
It's a temporary physical escape from the relentless vertical pressure of performance and existence.
He's entered his own self-made sarcophagus of space, surrounded by the neutral, non-threatening horizontality of the room's features.
Hal, the intellectual giant, finds his only peace in becoming a physical object, neutralized by gravity.
So if Hal is fleeing into abstract geometry and forced horizontality to escape the crisis of existence,
Gately is about to be plunged into the ultimate opposite, a relentless, agonizing confrontation with the unavoidable material reality of his body and his pain.
we shift instantly to Don Gately in the hospital bed. He wakes from a disturbing dream to find the real world is only marginally less intense.
He's massive, unshaven, and helplessly intubated.
Which explains why his attempts to speak are reduced to grunts and mews.
And he is in massive systemic pain, specifically synovial inflammation, which is medically compared to the agonizing pain of a renal calculus and ectopic labor.
Just unbelievable pain, yet despite the absolute misery, the sheer scale of him makes him look heroic or even romantic.
Which is a contrast that really speaks to the massive will he is currently deploying.
And his immediate lifeline is Jill Van Dyne, the veiled girl.
She wears the UHID veil, lavender trimmed, and she's only 3 weeks clean herself.
Nah.
She is his mirror and his guide.
She's essentially acting as his sponsor, trying to recreate a meeting for him right there in the ward.
She's bringing brownies she liberated from the nurse's station and wiping his forehead.
And she's conscious of his self-consciousness. He's trying not to make barnyard sounds in front of the local intellectual/art-type celebrity.
And to give context to the sheer destructive power of addiction, Joel shares the story of Wayne.
The damaged-looking boy from Kentucky.
Wayne, who looked 40 but was only 19, lived in a disconnected drainage pipe.
And he bore the mark of his past, a deep diagonal furrow in his face, the flaw from where his alcoholic father struck him with a hatchet at age 9.
And Wayne's story culminates in this incredible 10-year blackout, a decade completely lost to substance abuse.
Which gives Gately, who is struggling to reclaim even a single second of his life, a terrifying perspective on the stakes of his current battle.
Then Joelle shares her breakthrough realization about the concept that's so central to recovery. One day at a time.
She explains that her mistake was counting clean days, lining them up end to end.
Each day became another car Evil Knievel had to clear in his impossible jump.
And by day 14, she would look ahead and see the hundreds and hundreds of cars stretching into an improbable future.
The impossibility of clearing them all would just crush her. It would lead to immediate relapse.
The breakthrough was realizing she only had to clear this car, this moment.
And Gately's internal connection to this is profound. It's rooted in his own agonizing history.
He recalls his 92-day cold turkey detox in a Revere holding cage,
where the pain was so bad he had to literally build a wall around each second just to take it.
He wasn't living one day at a time. He was living completely in the moment.
What the White Flaggers, the members of AA, call the present or the gift.
This sparks the psychological shift necessary for Gately to endure his current, overwhelming trauma.
He realizes that his present unendurable pain and the future fear of legal retribution, the assistant district attorney, the ADA, Walpole Prison.
It's all contained entirely in his head's recon, reporting back unendurable news.
The power of choice, even while he's immobilized, is central.
He can choose to treat his head's predictions and reports of pain like clueless noise.
No single instant of pain is unendurable. It's the thought of the future, cumulative pain that breaks him. He has to stay in the absolute, immediate present.
And the mental battlefield is immediately made literal by the entrance of the Pakistani MD.
Thin, with a sing-song voice, a high-watt smile, he's a trauma professional.
Crucially, he's also Muslim and abstaining from substance abuse himself.
Which gives him this white-coated authority that makes him the ultimate sophisticated chemical temptation.
And the MD uses this flowery professional language to offer a wide range of narcotics. Oromorph, Dilaudid the Blues, Tawin.
The argument is devastatingly persuasive. Gately's refusal to accept analgesia is unnecessary suffering.
And the pain will, in fact, intensify as healing begins.
The medical professional is, inadvertently or not, acting as an extremely effective ad man for the disease.
And Gately's physical reaction is instant and terrifying.
His mouth floods with spittle, triggering the memory of the sick, sweet antiseptic taste of the drug he loved.
It's a moment of pure, desperate craving.
And in this moment of peak temptation, his sponsor, ferocious Francis G., 34 years, sober commits what Gately sees as the ultimate betrayal.
Francis G. is there, but he stays neutral and subdued. He says, "Not my business to say one way or the other," and then he leaves.
He abandons Gately in the face of chemical temptation. He gives Gately license to indulge his self-pity and rage.
And Gately knows what Francis G. knew. The MD is inhaling, he's ready to offer Demerol.
The drug Gately is powerless to refuse.
This triggers the climax of Gately's resistance. And it's not an act of rage. It is a desperate, nonverbal, physical act of self-preservation to stop the word from being uttered.
Gately's good left hand, skins and knuckles shooting out between the bars of the bedside crib railing and plunging under the MD's lab coat and fastening onto the guy's balls and bearing down.
The cost is immediate. A blue-green sheet of pain washes over Gately's eyes, sending him into a tube-impeded scream.
But the action is successful. It prevents the MD from speaking the drug's name, thus saving Gately from the ultimate relapse.
This horrifying act is the ultimate, non-negotiable proof of Gately's choice to abide in the present, even if that present is filled with screaming pain and physical violence.
So Gately has physically fought off the chemical threat, but his environment immediately replaces it with legal and emotional threats.
McDade and Dial arrive, and they deliver disparaging news.
The .44 item used in the shooting has vanished.
Probably taken by a third party, Lens, which significantly strengthens the case against Gately.
And worse, his friends can't depose for him. They have their own legal issues or probation.
Walking voluntarily into court, they explain, would be tantamount to like judicio-penal suicide.
This triggers a total, bitter, impotent job-type rage in Gately.
Why go through the sausage grinder of getting straight, suffering this pain, only to face jail time anyway?
He feels punished despite this tremendous life-altering effort he's making.
And the scene immediately swings to intense physical humiliation.
Which is often a necessary component of ego destruction in recovery.
The RN, Kathy, arrives, and Gately describes her in this minute, sexually charged, detail white stockings visible, cleavage like 2 smooth scoops of vanilla ice cream.
Her purpose is devastating, to administer a fleet enema, described as a cylindrical, syringe-snouted, ketchup bottle-ish thing.
So why is this extreme, almost forced vulnerability necessary for a man like Gately, whose entire past was defined by physical dominance and intimidation?
Because the core of his disease, as we're about to see, is hiding in self-pity, and its foundation is ego.
Gately is sick with longing and mortification. He feels shame that he has to expose his working anus to this sickening circumambient creature who smells of Kiss My Face lotion.
And she casually tells him, "Hug those knees like they were your sweetie," which just compounds his humiliation.
This forced loss of dignity strips away the last remnants of Don the tough guy, leaving only a broken, mortified addict dependent on a nurse who smells like commercial lotion.
But this scene of profound shame is immediately juxtaposed against the stunning irony of his legal salvation.
Pat Montesian, the House director, has a highly confidential meeting with the assistant district attorney for Suffolk County's 4th Circuit, the guy in the hat.
And we need to remember that the ADA is one of the most powerful and remorseless constables in the entire region.
And yet, he reveals his own vulnerability, his immense secret.
He is a member of Fob Companon, a 12-step splinter group for codependency and phobics.
And he is actively working Step 9.
Which requires making direct amends to those one has harmed, unless doing so would injure them or others.
And let's pause on Step 9 because this is crucial to understanding Gately's fate.
The step isn't about Gately receiving an apology.
No, it's about the ADA cleaning his own side of the street for his own spiritual health.
The ADA confesses he has hated this man Gately and blamed him for an incident that caused his wife Tootie's relapse into an oral dental hygiene compulsion.
She literally brushed her enamel off trying to deal with the anxiety Gately created.
So the ADA has to let go of that resentment to save his own spiritual life.
To make the amend to Gately, who he views as the ultimate enemy, he has to drop the case and pitch the file.
The irony is just total. Gately will two-step out of, at the very least, a probation violation and prosecution, not because he's innocent,
but because the man who despised him needed to achieve spiritual recovery via Step 9.
But the amendment is incomplete, isn't it?
It is. The ADA is so paralyzed by his lingering resentment and his phobias that he can't bring himself to face Gately to make the amend in person.
He can do the legal work, but he can't perform the emotional surrender of facing the man he resented.
It just shows that even in recovery, the war against the ego is never truly finished.
So Gately continues his internal war against the demoral craving, the lure of that aesthetic buzz, the feeling that pain of all sorts becomes a theory when you're high.
And he does this by retreating into the memory of his past crime world.
He's using the sheer visceral disgust of his past life as an object of contemplation to remain rooted in the painful but clean present.
He remembers his North Shore days, working as Don for Whitey Sorkin with Gene Fackelman and Trent Kite.
His primary job was collecting debts. And this is where Gately gets his first real exposure to addiction.
The debtors were often these pathetic gambling addicts, furtive, shame-ridden guys. And Gately judged them. He failed to recognize the terrifying pattern in himself yet.
The irony is inescapable, right?
Yeah.
Gately, the enforcer, he was bad at controlled violence.
Once he started something ferocious and uncontrolled on a slope inside the big kid, got dislodged and started to roll on its own.
His lack of control manifested as explosive rage, while the gambling addict's lack of control manifested as this furtive self-destruction. Both were hiding from the self.
And the ultimate betrayal in this crew centered on a massive scam run by Fackelman.
80s Bill bets a huge sum, $125,000, on Brown against Yale.
Sorkin's soft-headed Irish secretary, Gwendine O'Shea, mistakenly records the bet as a Yale win.
And the mistake happens partly because of this bizarre tip about a Yale forward with a neurologic disorder called postcoital vestibulitis,
which caused a loss of proprioception, a loss of sense of where his body was in space after sex.
It's a surreal moment of physical absurdity cutting right into the high-stakes crime world.
So Sorkin pays out a fortune to 80s Bill, who was supposed to have lost, while Fackelman, who knew the truth, pockets the initial stake.
Fackelman suddenly has $250,000. And what does he do with this massive windfall?
He doesn't flee. He converts it into 375 sky blue grams of diluted, a huge, dangerous supply he calls met diluted.
Trent Kite, the sensible one, tells Fackelman he's a dead man for trusting the dealer, because the dealer is known to Sorkin's new violent muscle.
And Fackelman's reaction to this fatal news is the ultimate addict's default mode.
Instead of fleeing, he goes home, fires up the cooker, and starts binging.
Using diluter and peanut M&Ms to blot out the problem and the terror of his impending death.
And this brings Gately to his moment of deepest shame and self-realization.
He went to Fackelman's room under the pretense of helping.
But Gately admits he was truly intent on getting high and keeping Fackelman company, believing his own lie that he was there to assist.
And in that moment of shared dissent, Gately realized with terrible force that the addict is at root a craven and pathetic creature, a thing that basically hides.
Fackelman was hiding from death by plunging into the substance. Gately was hiding from the shame of his own craving by plunging into the lie of companionship.
The final horrifying details of the binge are what Gately uses to combat the demoral craving.
2 days of continuous injection.
They ran out of distilled water, and Fackelman, in his desperation, started cooking up his diluted using candy-dyed urine he sopped up from the hardwood floor, which the urine was already corroding.
Gately wet himself. He was assaulted by the physical reality of the floor and the drug's effect. He couldn't help Fackelman when he had a small convulsion.
And the memory that sticks with him, the ultimate image of their shared degradation, is the phrase he can't shake.
More tattoos than teeth.
And this recollection, as repulsive as it is, serves its painful, essential purpose, keeping the Demerol craving at bay through sheer visceral horror.
So let's circle back to ETA. Hal has overcome the immediate panic attack through total horizontality.
But he's immediately confronted with the lasting evidence of escalating, unacknowledged chaos.
He returns to his room to find Mario dressing, and Mario relays the bizarre culmination of the Stice incident.
Trollch tore some of Stice's face off, toilet paper was applied and got stuck, and then the crowning absurdity.
Stice's bed has been lifted and bolted to the ceiling.
Bolted to the ceiling!
And the explanation for this is the peak of the Academy's intense, pressurized, and wholly internal reality.
Stice believes he's been chosen to get haunted or possessed by some kind of beneficiary or guardian ghost that resides in and/or manifests in ordinary physical objects.
And he thinks this is meant to raise his tennis game to a supernatural level.
Hal's reaction is telling. This accumulation of inexplicable events, the frozen face, the stretched skin, the unacknowledged room switch, and now a bed bolted to the ceiling, it triggers a renewed glimmer of dread.
The sheer volume of this chaos just reinforces his desire for pure, stabilizing horizontality and silence.
And just then, Pemulus appears in the viewing room with an urgency.
He wants to talk about the synthetic bacchanal drugs and their distribution.
But Hal is drained by the need for a complex response tree to navigate all the demands Pemulus's sudden, intense presence requires.
But he chooses absolute silence.
He's too exhausted to talk, too exhausted to lie, and too exhausted to engage in the necessary verbal fencing.
He tells Pemulus to get his father's old film, good-looking men in small, clever rooms that utilize every centimeter of available space with mind-boggling efficiency, and just cue it up.
And the film's climax acts as the perfect, mute, emotional mirror for Hal's internal suffering.
The protagonist, Paul Anthony Heaven, missing his thumbs, reads this turgid, technical, academic lecture in a dead monotone,
discussing the consequences of desiccation and being aridly cerebral,
while simultaneously silently weeping.
The tears run steadily down his face, revealing a pathetic core beneath the intellectual rigor.
It is the perfect visual representation of Hal, the brilliant mind and the articulate voice masking a profound, unexpressed sorrow. His use of intellect is his ultimate form of hiding.
So the core psychological conflict revealed in both these narratives, Gately's and Hal's, is this battle against internal and external cages.
Gately is literally trapped by his body, his past, and his addiction. He's forced to choose to abide in the present, what AA calls the gift.
The pain is unendurable, but the choice is simply to take the current second.
Hal, meanwhile, is trapped by his overwhelming mind and his inability to express emotion, finding a temporary philosophical escape only in the surrender of horizontality.
He chooses flatness, the state of being impossible to knock down, as his temporary respite from the crushing ambition.
Gately avoids the cage of addiction by violently grasping the MD's testicles, forcing him to be mute.
And Hal avoids the cage of performance by literally lying down and choosing silence.
Both men, operating in these extreme environments, are forced into extreme physical choices to redefine their relationship to reality.
And the ultimate common denominator is this battle between hiding and abiding.
The addict, Gately realizes, is at root a pathetic creature that hides. Fax Fackelman hiding from death with Dilaudid and urine.
And Hal's entire life is defined by plunging into intellectualism and ambition, which is its own form of hiding, to flee the gross reality of the body.
To flee the chicken fillets and the rising excrement.
So this is the great paradox. The pursuit of excellence can be just as much of a flight from reality as the pursuit of oblivion.
And the only way out of the cage, for both of them, is total surrender to the immediate non-negotiable moment, be it the moment of shame, the moment of pain, or the moment of horizontal inaction.
The great paradox revealed in these parallel chronicles is the cost of choosing lucidity. So the question we leave you with is this. What does it truly cost to stop hiding from the reality of the self and accept the unendurable present, especially when your intellect or your ambition offers such sophisticated chemical or psychological ways to run away?